Well, Frances G. Joyce is an author, and she's on the line with us here to talk about her book, Everything in Between. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
So, what was the inspiration behind this book, Everything in Between?
Well, I had this idea for some years about loss, and I couldn't really figure out how to write about it. And then in 2021, I lost my youngest son, and later that year, I lost my mother. And I had some personal issues, health issues. So there was a lot of loss and grief in my life, and I needed to find a way to channel it. So what I did was I went back to this idea and fleshed it through and just started writing.
And grief actually, well, a grief support group plays a significant role in the protagonist Sabrina's life, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And I met a brilliant woman named Lillian Myers, who had a grief support group. She had lost her son at 17. He was in a car accident. And Lillian started a grief support group here in the Pittsburgh area. And I learned so much just from her talking about what a grief support group is. I've never been to one, but you know, it's something I would consider doing, but, you know, just never really, for me, I just kind of did the little cocoon and stayed in my house. And well, you know, we were in the pandemic when my son passed away and my mother. So, you know, didn't really have the choices to run out and grab a support group.
So how much research did you have to do for the book? Because obviously you had to find out about the grief support groups, but of course we've all experienced grief, and you in particular can relate a lot to your own life. So was there much research you had to do?
You know, I just drew from my experiences of talking to people. I've met a lot of people. And one thing, when you lose a child, people who have lost a child kind of reach out to you. And, you know, so you get that and you hear their stories, and you take something away from each story because it is unique. And that's the thing about grief. I mean, we tend to think that we're the only person who's ever grieved in the world when it happens to us. But, you know, everybody has some sadness in their life and different ways of dealing with it.
Yeah.
So I didn't really do a lot of research in that. I did do research into Sabrina being a teacher because I wanted to be accurate on what being a teacher is like now in the United States, because,
yeah,
you know, it has changed. You know, it's not as safe as it used to be. And I do mention that there are active shooter drills at the high school where she teaches, because I didn't want to sugarcoat and I want her to be real.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a little things. And I consulted a lawyer because there are some legal things that go on. So I just wanted to be accurate.
Yeah, that's so interesting about consulting the lawyer. I mean, was there a lot of stuff that you were hesitant about putting in the book because of legal issues and maybe other issues as well?
Well, no, not really. The legal issue was that the superintendent of the school where Sabrina works is doing some underhanded things. And, you know, I just wanted, and when the police actually do catch up, because he threatened Sabrina, and, you know, I don't want to give everything away about the book, but, you know, when he does finally come to justice, I wanted to be accurate about what the police would do, how they would do it, how they would interview Sabrina, different things like that. So that's where I consulted with an attorney who is a very dear friend of mine. And, you know, and he was so helpful so that I could write this so it could be authentic, because I think sometimes when people write, and that's okay, I mean, they just write what's a great story and they don't really think about, well, this could never really happen in real life, because, you know, our legal system, A to X, right? You can't just jump. So, you know, and I write about real people. So I don't write about millionaires and billionaires and things like that. Not that they're not real people, but I write about everyday people like me that have mortgages to pay and jobs to go to. And, you know, that they have a different set of worries than a billionaire has.
And you mentioned that when you're grieving, you can sometimes feel like you're the only person in the world who's grieving. So I suppose that's the important thing about a grief support group. You realise that you're not alone.
Right. And that's where, I mean, Sabrina internalized, because she was 18 when this happened, when her boyfriend was killed, and he was the only one killed on that bus. And the thing for her is that she picked the seat where they were sitting. So she feels like if she just picked another seat, or if she just sat on the other side of him, or if she'd just done this, or this, maybe he'd be alive.
With that, Sabrina wants to preserve the memory of Adam, but Dr. McManus feels that his memorial could be a painful reminder. So how does the conflict between them drive the narrative?
It makes Sabrina face some issues that, she's been living, she's teaching at the same high school they went to, she's doing all the same things that they had planned. And all of a sudden, when his memorial is going to be taken away, it's kind of a stark reminder that he's not there anymore. I mean, she can walk down the halls, look at his locker, and do all the remembering she wants to do. But, it's just a kind of a slap to her face that, hey, he's not here and he's going to be forgotten. And she doesn't want that. So, she devises a way to honor his memory and gets help from her friend, Steve, who was also on the bus and was also Adam's best friend. So they decide that, they're going to do something special to keep his memory alive. So she's moving forward finally with that and doing something, which she'd never done before. She'd just always been in this little cocoon. So Dr. McManus, in a way, though he's an underhanded slimeball, he he did her a favor because he kind of got the jump start going that she needed to do to heal. And then, her coworker, Clay, who makes her go to the grief support group after he found her sleeping at Adam's grave, he helps too. And they develop a relationship. And so, she just doesn't do it alone. She just doesn't wake up one day and decide, hey, I'm going to fix this because I've been, I spent 9 years spinning my wheels. So she has help along the way, and she finally learns to accept it. And that's a big thing because you always have help, but if you do take it, and what kind of help? Because, there are also people who are looking at you when you're grieving, and they're looking at their watch and they're kind of timing you to say, okay, well, it's been so many days, it's been so many weeks, so many months. Shouldn't you be over this by now? But grief doesn't work that way.
And how do you take the help? Because maybe it's actually hard for some people to do that.
Absolutely. Sabrina's mad at first. She's mad at Clay. She doesn't want to be at the grief support group, but she realizes that if people find out she sleeps, she occasionally will sleep at her, her boyfriend's grave. She's a teacher. How many parents would want their children taught? There's a high school taught by a woman who sleeps in a cemetery. So she's kind of caught. She kind of has to accept the help that she doesn't want, and she fights it. She resists it, and eventually we do that. It's part of the stages of grief. We talk about, the 5 stages of grief. Everybody talks about them and everything, but I think they're true. But the thing is, they're not linear. So, you have denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Well, you can go through all that stuff, but, it pops up again and again. Sometimes you're in denial. Sometimes you're angry. Sometimes you think you've accepted it, and then you hear a song on the radio, or you see a place that you used to go with this person, or I watch a movie and I think my son would have loved this, or my son would have hated this. And we used to talk because he had a long illness. So we spent a lot of time together because he was bedridden for the last couple of years of his life. So we became very close, and we shared music. We shared all kinds of just terrific things. And it was great, his perspective versus mine, and I'll see something or hear something and I'll turn my head to tell him because I was always beside him and he's not there. And you have to deal with that. It doesn't matter where you are. And when my mom died, my brother was in a restaurant with his daughter, and he started to cry because it was my mom's favorite restaurant. And a man came over to him and said, I can see that you're hurting, and I just want you to know that grief comes in waves. He said, and it'll always be there. He said, you'll just have little waves and big waves, and you'll learn how to jump on your board and ride the waves out.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just brilliant.
Yeah.
Because it's so true.
And if we're not experiencing grief ourselves necessarily, but know someone who is, how can we be like that man and not be the person that's sitting offering support, but not really? We're just looking at our watch.
It's kind of listening. It's kind of being kind. And you think, how would I want someone to talk to me? And I think, 'cause we're not, like I said, we're not all the same. Some people want you to say, buck up, this is what you need to do or whatever, so there's no one perfect solution. There's no one right answer. And I think that's one of the things that I tried to hit on in my book when I talked about the different characters of the grief support group, because, they all lost people in different ways. They were all in different life situations. Some of us have great support systems. Some of us do not. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to write about this. And I wanted to put in some different, because Adam's parents split after he died because it was just too much for his mother. She couldn't handle it. And, Sabrina's parents, they became closer, and they became closer with Sabrina. Steve's parents were different. They all handled it differently. And there were people in the accident that I, talk about briefly. How they handled it is totally different. Most of them kind of scattered, went to different parts, and they don't really get together, because when they get together, they think about what happened, and they don't want to.
Yeah, it's so interesting that the characters handle it in different ways. And what was it that prompted you to have, Sabrina's parents getting closer and Adam's parents splitting up? Was there a kind of reasoning behind the difference?
The thing to me is I let my characters tell me where to go. I mean, I developed Sabrina and Adam and Clay and Steve, and then everything that happened, is based on them and what they seem to me. They become people to me, and I, a little crazy, but I talk to them, and seems like they talk to me, and they guide me. So that's what I got from my characters, is that, these people got closer, these people didn't. Because, it happens. I have friends I know who divorced after the death of their child. I have friends who moved after a child died. And I have my friend Lillian. She and her husband, Bob, got even closer. They had 5 children. He was the youngest of their 5 children. And they actually got so close. And they both, would chair the grief support meetings and everything. And they were fantastic people. When I met Lillian, she was almost 80 years old. And, she had such wisdom, and she still cried. He passed in 1978. He would have been just a few years younger than me. So, I really I connected with Lillian because my son was sick, and I knew we were told that my son wouldn't live to be 18. He wouldn't get out of his teens. And he was 28 when he passed away. So for 10 years, we were waiting for the other shoe to drop. And there was a part of us that kept saying, okay, well, maybe we beat this. Maybe, he's going to be fine. Maybe they're going to find a cure. Maybe they're going to do this. Maybe they're going to do that. But it didn't happen. But people like Lillian got me through to where, when we did lose him, I could tell. And I got divorced during his illness. So, marriages don't always stay together. And there are stresses, loss and grief, and just people handling grief in totally different ways. And, it can split up a marriage.
Out of interest, why is the book actually called Everything in Between?
Because the first line is cradle to the grave. We were meant to be together until we weren't. So they were born on the same day. They grew up together across the street from each other. And he died. She didn't, but they were together when it happened. So they got the cradle, they got the grave. Everything in between stopped when he died. So she realizes when she sees a man at the grief support group whose wife died after 40 years. And she's thinking, I want to be empathetic for him, but I'm just so jealous that he got to spend 40 years, having fights, making up, having children, having a life. And we didn't get to have that. And she's mad at people who did get to have that in a way that she understands is childish and it's not appropriate, but she can't help it.
Yeah.
So that's the everything in between.
And does she ever get over that?
Absolutely, she does. And, Clay helps her. And because Clay's dealing with his own loss. Clay's sister drowned when she was 15. He was home from college. He was supposed to be, taking care of her. And he let her go to a friend's house because he had plans with friends of his own. And there was a party at the house. And she got drunk and she fell in the pool. And nobody noticed and she drowned. So, he feels guilty. He has a lot of guilt. He understands the system of guilt. And that's the one thing about the two of them is they understand guilt.
Yeah.
And they help each other, get past that. So she helps him, he helps her.
Now, are you working on any more books at the moment?
I am. I'm working on a new book. It's about a woman who gets dumped by the man she lives with, and she goes off driving in her car, gets a flat, gets helped by a fellow who, while he's changing her tire for her, he gets dumped.
Oh.
So they form this spend this day together while she's getting, he patches the tire, he puts on the temporary spare. So then they go and, he takes her to the tire store so she can get so they spend the day while the car's being serviced, and they end up sleeping together. A one-time deal. They think he goes off, he's joined the army, he goes off and leaves for the army. They don't even exchange last names. She's pregnant. So she doesn't know, is it him or is it the guy who just dumped her? So, that's kind of the situation.
And is it almost a similar theme? Because, at the start of the story, when they get dumped, it's kind of grief almost. They go through the stages.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess it's human experience. I mean, it's what you see. And I think at my stage in life, I've seen a lot of loss. I've seen a lot of, people find happiness. So, it's just, I like to write about things that happen, because things like that do happen, actually.
Yeah.
As much as we think we're so careful and we're so smart, we do foolish things when we're upset. And I think, sometimes that's, grief and loss can be fodder for a lot of books and a lot of things. I don't want to, not that I denigrate, because I read a lot of rom-coms, things like that. So, I watch a lot of rom-coms, read a lot of them, and they're fun and they're great. But, to me, I just want to write about something, people's emotions and how they feel. And because I think it can help other people understand kind of their emotions and how they feel.
Yeah. Well, this current book is called Everything in Between. Where are all the places that it's available to buy?
It's on Amazon, and it's just been listed. It'll be on Barnes and Noble and all kinds of bookstores and everything. They've just, we're at the early stages in this whole thing. So, I just received word from Daniel Green from Amazon that, it's going into all the stores and everything like that. And so I'm very excited, and I hope everyone picks up a copy and reads it. So
yes,
it would be great.
Sounds exciting. Well, many thanks for joining us today. It's been great having you here.
Well, thank you. It's been great talking to you.